Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question. And I think she happens to be under the weather. She mentioned she had a fever. So, she's obviously not feeling well, but she's wondering how, amidst, sort of in the bounce back phase, the recovery phase, how can you go about sharing your interests with others when others don't seem to have the time, the money, etc.? And how do you sort of take your healing and your adventure, your life, your goal, and your focus to the next level? Especially if you've been through a relationship where there was gaslighting. So I want to kind of talk about the connection between, gaslighting, when somebody deliberately manipulates you through force, through deception, through concealment, not in an empowering basis. In other words, not giving you too much information, but meaning that if someone is deliberately concealing, withholding information, that without this information, you are adversely impacted and you're not able to register with your authentic self. In other words, part of the problem with gaslighting, which is where someone really sort of denies you your reality, denies you a sound reality where your senses are in check. You can, there's a certain degree of reliance, security, and certainty, and a certain degree of reliability and predictability in the relationship. In other words, you're going to be here on Friday night, or you're going to be here for my birthday. All things considered, obviously, if you're not sick or you're not well, you're not going to do that. But basically, part of the gaslighting is sort of denying one of their reality, denying them of sort of validating their reality and saying, you're right, that makes sense. We get where you're coming from. In other words, having an empathetic conversation or relationship, keeps you on your center, and it makes it easier for you to then have things like interest, to have things like other new relationships. And not everything has to cost a lot of money, and not everything has to cost a lot of time. What are some everyday things that you can do, such as your support center at your community recreational center, your community municipality, your library. These are all places where free things take place, and you can meet like-minded others who possess empathy and might be able to surprise you with creating some new memories and experiences. This is so key that you begin to branch out a little bit and begin to come like an embryo out of the ground when the time is ready, so you're able to grow. You're able to adapt and adjust and be resilient, and you're exemplary of these emotional qualities, i.e., you're walking the talk, you're talking the walk, you're doing the do, you're on it, you're on top of it, you are in action, you are on it. In other words, you're convinced enough, you have enough self-belief that you are taking action. But if deep in your heart, if you still believe the lies, the gaslighting, deep inside feel that you deserve all the mistreatment that you got, then you're going to have a difficult time finding interests, finding people, finding new opportunities, and feeling that life is good, that you've got direction, and that it's not stressful, it is not forceful, it is not pressure, it is navigated inside, and you are balanced. You're not going to these extremes, radical extremes of emotions or behavior. You want to keep off of those extremes. It's always a bounce back, and then it becomes an addictive tension cycle. So if you, have been just sort of experienced that dissociative state that I don't really run my life. My life is not my own. My life is run by this person. My life is run by these circumstances. My life is run by this noise. My life is run by, this organization. You're sort of externalizing what your life is run by. Think again. because that can be part of the flawed thinking and part of the self-limiting beliefs that keep you from taking action in the direction of your dreams. You might succumb to a lot of fear. You might succumb to a lot of gaslighting where you're doubting your reality. And if you've been in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic or psychopathic, who is engaged in this sort of gaslighting and sort of, treated you with this sort of a wall of negativity and shame and hostility and, deception, pathological lying, concealment, this can cause not only a lot of grief, but a lot of feeling of dissociation, sort of not being in control, not owning your I am, not owning your interests, and not feeling liberated in belief of self and confident of self in your solar plexus and being grounded to be able to take, those action steps, even if it's as simple as going back, starting to go back to church, going to AA meetings, going to events at your library. And now I know with the whole pandemic of this coronavirus that, there's probably a lot of these things shut down. So you can look at online forums like that are hosted here at YouTube. You can get up on the news, comment, participate, connect with others, introduce yourself to others, or just, get into a conversation, not exposing yourself, making yourself vulnerability, but you can share connections, share feelings, share new experiences together, especially as we go through this pandemic. So I know that they're shutting down a lot of gatherings, even, here in the US, that are greater than 10 people or more. So everything is being canceled up the wazoo, and, so you're going to need to be resourceful. And so, you might want to really look at delving into your interests. Maybe you have an interest in knitting, crocheting, some of these, really sort of arts and craftsy projects while you're at home. Maybe getting into cooking, maybe getting super organized. If you're sick, obviously this isn't going to be, a go-to, but there is nothing really, it becomes then a factor of excuses. It becomes a factor of low self-esteem. It becomes a factor of limiting self-beliefs that keep you hindered, held back, not taking action, not believing in yourself, and sort of staying in that disowned reality state. Realize that if you've been through a lot of that, you have to take stock of what you've been through. And realize, how long have I been living in sort of this altered reality or altered mindset, dissociative state a little bit, where you kind of feel maybe that you were mistreated and you didn't own your reality. You didn't get to have a chance to have all the information to make an informed decision in the relationship, or maybe it was a long time coming. And so, you can feel, this sort of feeling of lack of control and regret and remorse and maybe some blaming. But especially if you've been through a relationship where you didn't get to follow up on your interests because you were not validated, you were not listened to, or you were not treated with credibility and trust. You were always sort of blamed. You were the scapegoat. I mean, that was the hat that you wore for a long period of time with, something written across your forehead, scapegoat, or, whatever the label was that this individual gaslighted you into, is that you bought into this false reality, this false mirror of yourself. If you understand how this deprives you of that inner core and that interest, and even as simple as, having an exercise, having a good healthcare regimen, having a good self-care. A lot of people let things go. They let their lives go. They let their health go, their homes, their jobs, their belief in self, and they don't feel that they can do it. They haven't had enough positive airing out of their feelings, discussing things, and then having enough positive validation of you and identifying your unique and individual, self and strengths even if it's as simple as listening. Not everybody has that ability. Maybe you're a great orator. Not everybody has that ability. Maybe you're a great reader. You can read books on tape, and you could, start this as a little thing for the people who are stuck at home. You could develop all. It takes some creativity and resourcefulness. And so you can ask yourself, if I really believed in myself, I would really love to. And then write down 1 through 20. If I really believed in myself, I would really love to. And don't censor it, don't edit it. If I had 10 people as well, leave all those details out. What would you really love to do? Or what's really possible for me to do as well? It's about opening up your options, raising your awareness, and, writing these lists out and posting them on your wall. I don't care if it seems silly, strange, odd. Hey, guess what? This is what successful people do. They keep their goals in front of them. It's not like you have to prove to yourself that you're smart enough, that you can remember all this, and that eventually you'll get to it. See, that's going to be an excuse. That does not have the vibe of commitment and self-respect. You are not being truthful and honest with yourself. You're still living in that gaslighted, dissociated state that you've been put into by this relationship or string or series of relationships. And then that whole life trajectory that put you onto. So you have to be able to look at the steps, the cause that creates the effect in where you are, and knowing what the difference is. So the effect is the low self-limiting belief, and that also but you have to look at the cause that put it there, and then the why, the who, what, why, where, when, what is the whole situation. And that's why I talk about how important in your healing journey it is to resensitize yourself. Really work on grooming your senses. What you put in your vision, what you put in your mouth, what you put in your ears, what you put in your heart, what you put in your mind, what you actually follow up on, what you put, for the scents around you. Are they, old and dingy? Is it, your place is just, it just smells like all the food that you have cooked and it's just stale and stagnant? When was the last time you cleaned your oven? You did a deep cleaning. You had a cleaning service come over. You did, you cleaned out, that you can clear and then create a cleansed space in your heart emotionally as well, because as you do this, you'll begin to get momentum and change up your environment, even if it's moving your furniture around. It's not like your furniture is stuck, nailed down to the floor. Move some stuff around, move a bed around, get some curtains, get a new rug, get a new towel set or washcloth. Develop your interest. Start to make yourself, a fresh perspective. And, then when you ask yourself these questions, if I could really stop making excuses, I would really love to. And I would love to meet a man, a woman, a family, some children. I would like to babysit. I would like to start a daycare center, an adult daycare center, start a candle business, start a pickling business, start a wild foods restaurant. I mean, what kind of things can you do and really go for? And then, what can you follow up on, and what can you do today? And what can you do to start planning today? What can you write down in your appointment book? What can you do on your recovery date? What can you give yourself as your recovery gift that speaks to this interest? If you've maybe just started watching this channel, you might need to then review some of the other videos, because we talk about how important it is to develop your interest and your I am. And that really includes your level of self-belief. So you really have to root out, if you do not believe in yourself, your goals, your I am, then you're not going to follow up on it. So you're not going to believe in yourself. So if you don't believe that going to church, going to synagogue, going to mosque, going to Save the Planet rally, whatever it is, if you don't believe you're going to make a difference, it's going to be good for you, you're going to meet people, it's going to be organized. If you don't believe, then you're not going to do. If you don't have that faith, then you're not going to explore. So it's about opening up the options and the opportunities. It's very important that you do these open-ended exercises with some of the questions that we discuss here. And I'm toying with the idea. It's been a lot of chaos, of course, adjusting to a lot of the lockdown for this coronavirus situations. For some people, it's a bigger deal than others. And so we just don't know what we're up against. And they're saying it could be 45 days, 60 days, 3 months, 4 months, that it's going to peak in 45 days from now. So we're talking, beginning of May, June, that this could continue. And so if you're, changing your routine, then this is a perfect opportunity to get the book, to, make, the recipes, to start, it's a perfect time to start. Turn within. It's my feeling, and what I've always been taught is that really those people who are successful ultimately have to be resourceful. Meaning, you got to learn how to rub 2 sticks together to make a fire. You got to learn a little bit of survival skills. You got to get the optics together of what it is to prime your subconscious mind. You need to understand, if you don't have leverage on yourself and taking action on your interests because you're still in that gaslighted state, then you need to get leverage on yourself. You will not take action until the pain is great enough, i.e., something really happens. The house is empty, the bank is empty, your car is gone, you got no foods in the cupboard. You then need to take action. That's when the pain is great enough. When do you want to hit more of a rock bottom? How much more bottom do you want to go? Can you at least take some action, even if it's individual or solitary, to develop your I am? I am interested in. I love. Put 1 through 20. I am interested in. Put 1 through 20 and fill these in. And don't make it limited by cost, people, location. All you want to do is be able to lay that out on the paper in front of you. Yes, you can tell I, did my education, master's education, psychology, English. I am a fan of writing, especially for you who need to develop kinesthesiology connection with yourself, i.e. doing, i.e. new muscle memories. Then writing is a very important tool. You're going to learn the things that you write. You're going to see the things that you write. You are going to own the things that you write, because no one's telling you, in order to get along with a narcissist, I must be interested in. So you might need to replace a lot of interests. These people might have been a negative influence. They might have listened to bad music, bad videos, bad movies, bad, influences, bad toilet talk, whatever it is, they might have had, a negative influence. So you have to be safe enough to own that perspective, because a lot of people, boy, do they want to protect the narcissist or the psychopath at certain stages of the game, because they love this person, they admire, they respect, but yet they have been hurt, damaged, sometimes even destroyed. It gets very severe. So, but you might have a lot of lingering love and admiration and respect that you have to keep in check. You have to realize what that is still in play, and then own that, and then knowing, despite that love, I am going to, despite that experience, I am interested in. So you might have to also drop a lot of old interests, and pick up some new good habits. If you do something 30 days in a row, you're on your way to creating a new habit. Just like people who start smoking, drinking, cussing, if they do that for 30 days in a row, you are setting up a habit that very soon can become an addiction that you are powerless over. That will defeat the purpose. And so, you need to enforce this for 30 days. If you don't have that leverage over yourself, then you have to say the buck stops here. Like Governor Cuomo said on his address, to New York State, eventually I have to make the call here. The buck has to stop with me. I have to say what goes and what does not go, what flies and does not fly. So you have to become responsible and accountable. And if you need to write it down, get an appointment book, put up a sticky note, write it big in flashing colors, you need to do this. You need to get into the healing level of the subconscious mind where things will start to become easier once you have primed that area. Fed it with images, sounds, sense of those things that you're interested in and you believe in. So you have to follow through. You have to follow up. And even if it's just, and not spreading yourself too thin. In other words, not saying, oh my God, like I'm going to do this, and then you're just overwhelmed. Pick 1 or 2 or 3 things you can start to develop that you can commit to. Don't say, hey, I'm gonna, all of a sudden, go vegan, and you've got, 6 months of steak in your freezer. I mean, let's be honest. Let's not stay in a dissociative state or harbor dissociative habits. Meaning, oftentimes, if you've been in situations where your reality, your communication has been denied, you're going to be maybe used to having a habit of going into that dissociated state, waiting for, in other words, I'm interested in this to please the narcissist. I'm interested in this to please the psychopath. I am doing this because their relationship requires it. I'm living my life this way because they told me this is what I had to do and I had no other choice. So now that I have a choice, I would really love to. Now that I have a choice, I am really going to. In list 1 through 10, if you keep going, if you're blowing out the list, write 1 through 50. Don't censor it. Don't make it, any of those voices, you can't do this, you'll never go there, you'll never have this, you'll never do that. To some degree, if you at least don't see what you're interested in on paper, then you won't ever hear it. So this is an exercise for you to get to hear yourself. And guess who denied you that opportunity? Guess who didn't give you that experience? Previous damaging or abusive relationships. If you have been in a series or string or a lot of intensive relationships where you've been in that sort of I can't own my truth state, then you're going to have a hard time knowing and believing in yourself and owning those interests. You're going to feel that you're, involved in a lot of things that are not right for you, are not a good fit, that were adaptive or defense mechanisms. If so, don't worry about it. It doesn't make you a bad person. You are human. That is for everybody. So, you might need to shed it like an old skin. In other words, I'm clearing that out of my wheelhouse. And then being able to look at if you have a habitual sort of dissociated state or reality where you weren't allowed to speak up, so you don't have the good habit, then begin to create that good habit in yourself. There's meetup.com, which is a great place for you to meet people. Look at it in your area. You can go for however many miles, when you're well, and you can look at this, and there's everything under the sun there. Or you can start a meetup group. So if you wanted to start a meetup group, you can go there. You can, be a travel scout in your city or whatever it is you want to do. You can just look at those sort of things. I feel generally, so if you do want to meet people who you can trust, once you've been through some of your lessons learned, like I talk about in the book that I'm working on, once you really understand and get your lessons learned, then you kind of can be a better gauge and a better judge of going out to meet people and who you can trust, who you can't trust, what activities you're interested in, what is going to be a waste of your time, what's going to be giving and beneficial, and what's going to rob you of your energy and set you back. So the buck has to stop with you. You have to be the determining and responsible factor, accountable. We're, Abraham Lincoln, we're about as happy as we choose to be. So begin to understand that you have a power of choice in this, and that includes evolving through those dissociated states where you're plagued with limiting self-beliefs. Release those and get into a stronger I am, and begin to write and follow up and make some action steps that we talk about. Watch our other videos. We talk about how to prime the subconscious with imagery, with sound, with astralmations, with emotements. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Believe in yourself. Be strong in your I am. Every day in every way, your I am is getting stronger. I am. And so definitely, really examine that energy shift of perspective and work on those. Run the video again and again and post those lists. Don't forget, enforce this for yourself. And by the way, I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. It is so good to hear from you. Thank you so much for your support. It does help me to feel good about what I'm doing, to know that we're hitting home and resonating with people. So thank you so much for sharing your stories, your experiences, and your comments. And yes, even if you're donating $1, it does make a difference. It does help keep things flowing. So thank you so much for your consideration, and so glad you found the channel. Have a beautiful day. Peace out.